Well, I'd like to read this quote that I find both both edifying and quite amusing. So this is from it's a translation into English, but it's from a Zen Buddhist monk living in the 12th or 13th century, so the better part of 1,000 years ago. And he said, um, talking about this is in the theme of talking about how our action in the world is important, how our action is part of our purpose, and how that ties into a divine purpose. Um, he said, this is Dogen, the behavior of Buddhists makes the earth manifest itself as God and ripens the Milky Way into delightful cheese. So I think that's a great quote.
That is a good quote. I remember reading that one. I was like, that's peculiar, but it makes
Yeah.
sense.
So the author there, he has a note on it. I remember reading specifically like on that on translating that part. And it is a translation and he's translating essentially a metaphor or a play on words. So it's a little bit difficult, but he made a case that that's sort of the best way to translate it. And I just like that quote. It ripens the Milky Way into a delightful cheese.
Dude,
Um,
delightful. It's like, you think of these haughty academics going through these books, reading,
right.
reading, reading, and then you come with that, and it's just like profound.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, but I mean, it is profound.
It is, yeah.
As silly as it is, he's talking about the connection that human development has to the development of the cosmos. He's saying that the individual actions of a person are part of the maturing of the cosmos itself.
It's a,
That is profound. Yeah.
the micro really builds on that macro there, those individual, you think of just the progress of humanity and all the human beings that have ever lived. And we got a select few that we admire and we keep fresh in the history books, but nonetheless, each individual has had an impact. It's like when you think of reaching the number 500, right? Most people look at the number 500 as being the number. Oh, this is the number that got us to 500. But they don't look at the other 499 that are just as important as that 500, because if they weren't there, that 500 wouldn't be there.
Right, right. And this ties back to the earlier chapter on the myth of secularism, when we talked about how the secular view and the materialist view offers no real hope for redemption. I mean, the best case they have is that there's this future state where everyone will have figured things out and will live in material abundance and an ideal socialist society like Star Trek kind of thing. Like, okay, that's nice, but what about everyone who's living now in terrible times and like all the people being murdered and raped and whatever it is? What about them?
Right.
Like their lives don't count in that model. I mean, they're only stepping stones to the place where it's good. And then we just have to forget the fact that, it was so terrible until we got here, assuming that we ever got there. Whereas the view of an intimate, infinite connection to each individual is that each individual life has an infinitely significant part to play. Yeah, and the way the metaphor you were using reminded me of I talk a little bit on the book or mention briefly the movie The Prince of Egypt because as I read through the Bible and read the story of Moses, I was like, I'm not getting what this is supposed to be saying. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh, this is a beautiful story once you bring it to life. One of my favorite songs from there starts off, um, does does the stone that sits on the mountain's top think it's more important than the stones that form the base? Like it's all part of the mountain. So that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, that's exactly it.